Hey guys, welcome to CyberPlatter. This is Navya. This is a series on Microsoft Sentinel. This is chapter 2, and in this we will go over how to set up Sentinel and manage permissions using RBAC. So let's get started. If you want to follow along with the demos, you can create a free Azure trial account. You can search for Azure free trial. Go to the first link, which is azure.microsoft.com. Create your free account today. Click on it. So here you can create a free Azure account. If I scroll down, it tells you what is this free account for. It is for new Azure customers, and you get $200 credit to use Amazon services within a month. And after that, it is pay as you go pricing. So let's sign up. Click on sign up. Then you create your profile, your country, your first name, last name, email address. Once you enter your phone number, it will ask you to verify your identity. You can get a text or you can ask Azure to call you with a code. Then enter the verification code. Then click on verify code. Then enter your address. Then I'm going to check. I understand that Microsoft may contact me about my free account. I represent that I am the individual identified on this account. I don't want to receive any emails with tips and information and offers from Microsoft, so I'm not going to check that. And then click on next. And then it will ask you to verify your identity by using a credit card or a debit card. I will enter those details now. And then click on sign up once you enter the credit card details. After that, you might be asked to set up MFA. Then it says you are ready to start with Azure. Go to Azure portal. Okay, now my free Azure trial account is ready. Before we start with the Microsoft Sentinel deployment, let's look at some prerequisites for it. First is an Azure tenant. So you need access to Microsoft Entra ID license and tenant. Microsoft Entra ID was formerly called Azure Active Directory. This is an identity and access management service used in Azure. You need access to that. And a tenant is a dedicated instance of Entra ID that manages users, groups, and permissions for an organization. Usually, if you're part of a company, right, your organization provides access to an existing tenant. And if you don't have an organization's Entra ID tenant, you can still create an individual Azure account, like just we created a free account, right? You can create that because you need an individual account with a valid payment method. So under this, either you need a Microsoft Entra ID license and tenant or an individual account with a valid payment method. The valid payment method that we entered was a credit card. And this is required to access Azure and to deploy resources. So the next prerequisite is to have an active Azure subscription. So to deploy and use Microsoft Sentinel, you must have an Azure subscription. And this Azure subscription either requires a Microsoft Entra ID tenant, that is for businesses or organizations, or an individual account with payment details. This is for personal or trial use. And an Azure subscription is used to track resource creation and billing. So when you are deploying Microsoft Sentinel, you create and manage cloud resources such as log analytics workspaces, data connectors, right? For that, you need the subscription to provide a way to organize, track, and manage these resources. And even if you use a free trial, Azure needs a subscription to associate costs with the resources you deploy. It helps monitor usage and set up budgets, alerts, and cost analysis to avoid unexpected charges. And then you require a log analytics workspace. So a log analytics workspace is essential for Microsoft Sentinel because it serves as a central location where data is collected, stored, and analyzed. Sentinel ingests security logs, threat intelligence, and other telemetry into this workspace, and it later uses it for, say, threat detection, security analytics, investigation, and response. Few things that you need to note is that the workspace must not have a resource lock applied. Resource locks prevent modifications which can interfere with Sentinel's ability to function properly. And also the workspace must use a pay-as-you-go or commitment tier pricing model. So legacy pricing tiers are not supported. And commitment tiers allow cost savings for high volume data ingestions. And usually commitment tiers allow cost savings for high volume data ingestion if you are doing it for an organization. And then is a dedicated resource group. This is a recommendation to simplify management and security. It is recommended to create a dedicated resource group for your log analytics workspace and other Sentinel resources such as playbooks, workbooks, or data connectors. So why a dedicated resource group is recommended? Because it simplifies permission management. Like for example, assigning permissions at the resource group level ensures they automatically apply to all included resources. So this reduces the risk of improper access configurations. And also you can make sure that only Sentinel related resources are in this resource group, and this makes it easier to enforce least privilege access, right? So a structured approach to resource grouping enhances security, simplifies administration, and reduces permission complexity, and in turn makes Sentinel's operation secure and efficient. So this is how it will look like. First you have your management group, then your subscriptions, then your resource groups. Under that resource group, you will have your resources, for example, log analytics workspace. Now let's see a demo to create these resources in the Azure portal. So in the Azure portal, if you want to look at what subscriptions are available, you can search for subscriptions in this search bar. So when I typed SUBS, it gave me services subscriptions. I'm going to click on that. And here it tells me I have one subscription, that is a default subscription that was created, Azure subscription 1, and my role is owner. And if you want to create more subscriptions, you can click on add and then create another subscription. So I will be using the default one, so I'm not going to create this. Let me go back to home. So if you see here, we have the subscriptions. Now let's create a resource group. Again in the search bar, I'm going to search for resource groups. Click on resource groups and then click the create button to start the process. It gives a basic description of what a resource group is. It's a container that holds related resources for an Azure solution. The resource group can include all the resources for the solution or only those resources that you want to manage as a group. And there is the subscription. You can select the default one or the subscription that you have created. And then resource group name, I'm going to call it Sentinel RG. A region, it's East US. You can select any other location as well, whichever suits you. I'm gonna go with East US, then next. Next, it takes me to the tags page. So this is not mandatory, but a tag in Azure is a label that consists of a key value pair. This is used to organize and manage Azure resources. So tags can help categorize resources based on different attributes such as department, cost center, project, groups, and so on. For example, I can create something like, say, cost center, and maybe the cost center number I want to give is 01. I can create another tag saying technical owner and then assign the name. Or you can also say environment is production or development or test. So this will help you group and identify resources across multiple subscriptions. For now, I don't want to create any tags for this resource group. So I'm going to skip this step and click on next. Next is the review and create stage. So in this stage, you validate the settings. If everything looks okay to you, then click create to finalize the resource group. So I'm going to go ahead and click create. And like you can see, the resource group is created, Sentinel RG, that is in the subscription, Azure subscription 1. So I can click on Sentinel RG and it takes me to the resource group. So under this, you can see the overview, activity log. Will get back to this, but for now, understand that the resource group is created. So going back to our PPT, we have the subscription ready, resource group ready. The next step is to create a log analytics workspace. Let's get back to the portal. In the search bar, again you search for Log Analytics Workspace. So it comes up here. I'm going to click on Log Analytics Workspace. Click Create. It tells you a Log Analytics Workspace is the basic management unit of Azure Monitor Logs, and it also gives you a link for more details on Azure Analytics Workspace. So it is a logical storage unit where your log data is collected and stored. Subscription is already selected. Then the resource group, I'm going to select Sentinel RG, the one we created just now, or you can create a new one as well here. And then it is asking me for the Log Analytics Workspace name. I'm going to say Sentinel Workspace. And the region, I'm going to leave it as East US. Next. Tags, I'm going to skip this. I don't need to tag it. And next is review plus create. Let's validate our settings. It's taking a minute. It's done. Validation passed. And if I scroll down, everything looks good. I'm going to click on create button. And then it says initializing deployment. Initializing template deployment to resource group Sentinel RG. Now the deployment is in progress. And you can click on this notification button to see what you have done. So deployment succeeded. Let me close the notifications. And if I click on this button which says go to resource, this is the Sentinel workspace that we just created. So we are done with all the prerequisites to deploy Sentinel. Let's go back to the portal. Again in the search bar, I'm going to search for Microsoft Sentinel and then click Microsoft Sentinel. Then I'm going to click create to begin the deployment. Here I can choose a workspace that is already available or create a new workspace. So we already created a workspace. I'm going to click on it and then say add. It says adding Microsoft Sentinel to workspace Sentinel workspace. It's taking a minute to do that. So you can click on the notifications to see what's happening. It also says if you want more events, you can go to the activity log and look at them. Now we have successfully added Microsoft Sentinel. Let me close the notifications. So it also gives you a message that Sentinel free trial is activated. The free trial is active on this workspace from so and so date, that is for a month. And then you can use up to 10 GB per day data, that is free. I'm going to click OK. You can expand these options to see what's available. Threat management, there is general, then threat management, content management, and configuration. We will go through all of these one by one in the later chapters. Now let's see how to set up role-based access control for Microsoft Sentinel. First, what is role-based access control RBAC, right? So it is a security model that restricts access to resources based on a user's role within an organization. So instead of assigning permissions to individual users, roles are created with specific permissions and users are assigned to those roles. And Microsoft Sentinel assigns permissions using Azure RBAC, that is Azure Role-Based Access Control, to manage access for users, groups, and services. This is to make sure that security teams have fine-grained control over what users can see and do within Sentinel. They have built-in Azure roles. These are predefined roles provided by Sentinel that determine user permissions. So you can assign roles at the subscription level, resource group level, or the resource level, that is the log analytics workspace level, Sentinel workspace level. Remember that if assigned at the subscription or resource group level, Sentinel inherits permissions from them. Let's look at the Microsoft Sentinel built-in roles. The first one is Microsoft Sentinel Reader. This has view-only permissions. So it can view data, incidents, workbooks, and other Sentinel resources. So here you can't modify anything, you only have view access. The next one is Microsoft Sentinel Responder. This includes reader permissions but can also manage incidents. like assign them, dismiss them, update the status, right? Usually it is given to somebody, say if you have a SOC team, SOC 1 members can be given this role where it is Microsoft Sentinel responder. They can view the data as well as manage incidents. And then there is Sentinel contributor, and this includes the roles of Microsoft Sentinel responder, and then it can also install or update solutions, create or edit workbooks, analytic rules, and other resources. So usually SOC 3 higher level SOC people as well as security engineers or architects who need to configure Sentinel settings are given this access. And then there is Microsoft Sentinel Playbook Operator. This role can view and manually run playbooks. So you can give this to security analysts, say, who need to trigger automation but cannot modify playbooks. Then there is Logic App Contributor who can view and run playbooks as well as create and edit playbooks. There's also another role called Microsoft Sentinel Automation Contributor, which allows Microsoft Sentinel to add playbooks to automation rules. The best practice is to assign roles at the resource group level to automatically apply them to all related Sentinel resources. And make sure that you use least privilege, that is, grant only the access required for a user's role. So when you're managing Microsoft Sentinel rules, not just the Sentinel predefined rules, but you may also encounter other Azure roles. There are Azure roles as well as log analytic roles. So Azure and log analytics roles provide broader access to resources. So Azure roles affect all Azure resources including Sentinel and log analytics. For example, owner, full control including role assignments. Contributor can modify resources but not manage roles. Reader, view only access. So these are broader roles, right? Then there is log analytics roles. These are specifically for log analytics workspace. There is log analytics contributor who can modify workspaces and manage settings. And then there is log analytics reader who has view only access to logs and analytics data. So the role overlaps can impact permissions. You need to keep that in mind. Suppose say there is a user with Microsoft Sentinel Reader as well as Azure contributor role. This user can modify Sentinel resources because of their contributor role at the Azure level. So if you only want a user to have Sentinel specific permissions, check and remove broader roles like Azure contributor or owner unless it is necessary. So the best practice is to assign permissions at the lowest possible scope, like for example Sentinel workspace or Azure resource group to minimize unintended access. So let's look at some roles and permissions recommendations by Microsoft. Security analysts are provided with Microsoft Sentinel Responder and Microsoft Sentinel Playbook Operator roles. So they can view and manage incidents, workbooks, and other Sentinel resources because of the Responder role, and because of the Playbook Operator role, they can attach and run playbooks. Then for a security engineer, Microsoft Sentinel contributor, and this will allow them to manage incidents, create and edit workbooks, analytic rules, and install solutions. And they are also given Logic Apps contributor. This is to run and modify playbooks. And then there are service principals for whom the recommendation is to provide Microsoft Sentinel contributor role at the Sentinel's resource group level, and they can use it for automated configuration and management tasks. Also remember that Microsoft Entra ID roles may be required for some integrations. For example, security administration is needed to set up data connectors for external services. So let's see a demo how to assign these roles. So the best practice is to assign at the resource group level or the log analytics workspace level, but I'm going to do it at the resource group level. Search for resource groups and I'm going to select Sentinel RG, the resource group that we created. Then in the left hand menu, select access control, identity and access management, and then click add. add role assignments, and then here search for Sentinel. So you can see there are 6 predefined rules. And remember, in addition to using built-in roles, Azure custom roles can also be used. So these custom roles will let you define specific permissions beyond the built-in roles. For example, if you want to create read-only access for specific Sentinel data, you can use custom role. Or if you want to restrict permissions to workbooks, playbooks, or automation rules, or even allow third-party integrations with minimal privilege, you can start using custom roles. Okay, in the role assignment, maybe I will select Microsoft Sentinel Contributor and then click Next. Next is the members field. So it's telling us that the selected role is Microsoft Sentinel Contributor. Then assign access to user, group, or service principal. This is for individual accounts or groups. So user represents an individual person with an Azure AD account or Entra ID account. Like for example, a security analyst needs read-only access or Microsoft Sentinel Contributor role. Next is a group. A group is a collection of users in Entra ID. So assigning roles to a group automatically applies those permissions to all members in that group. Next is a service principal. A service principal is a non-human identity representing an application or service that requires permissions. This is used when an external or custom application interacts with Azure resources, like for example, API access. Use case would be like, a third-party SIEM tool needs access to Microsoft Sentinel. That's about user group or service principal. Next is managed identity. Like you can see, this is for automation or services. Azure managed identities are a special type of service principal managed by Azure. They are used to grant secure automated access to Azure resources without storing credentials. Usually this is the recommended practice. So why do we use managed entities? Because they require no passwords or secrets, like how service principals require them, right? These don't require them. Automatic Entra ID authentication happens with this, and these are more secure than storing credentials in applications. So that's why you use managed identities. There is a separate video explaining everything about managed identity. I will link it in the description box if you want more details. For now, I'm going to select user group or service principal, and then in the members, select members. You usually have a lot of other users, but here I have only my user name, so I'm going to select that and then say select, and then scroll down. You can add a description why this access is provided as well, and then click on next. It will allow you to validate the settings. Then you can click on review and assign. Then if you look at the notifications, it says that this account was added as Microsoft Sentinel Contributor for Sentinel RG, that is the resource group name. So that's the end of chapter 2. We saw how to deploy Sentinel, what are the prerequisites, what are the roles and permissions, how you can assign them. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and share our videos. I will see you in the next video, chapter 3 on Microsoft Sentinel. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.